Hey everyone, welcome to our NFL preview for the week with Jacob from Trypod. Jacob, how is everything?
Going pretty well, thanks, mate. Always excited to chat with yourself and look forward to the week of NFL ahead.
Man, I gotta say, I think this is like our sixth episode. I gotta think of a name or something. It's really awkward introducing something without a name, I've realized. So that's my little bit of homework before before 2024. But you mentioned just before we started recording, you had a couple of stories from the last week or so. What have you been up to? And yeah,
Yeah, so
I'll let you start.
I hate to be the guy that I'm going to share some stories, this one and NBA. I hate to be the guy that tells people about like a winner that you had, but you didn't share it on the show, right? So I
Yeah,
promise I've got my fair share of stories to tell of losses as well. Like there's been some harsh losses, but the tip I gave last week, I did say a couple of things that I got right. I like the Raiders. Now they remember I told you they had a game that was 0-0 after 58 minutes and they lost 3-0, so they were scoreless. Well, this time they were up 42-0 at halftime. They had 63 in the game. I also predicted a week ago the Chargers coach was a dead man walking would be fired. Well, he should have been fired at halftime, 42-0. He certainly was fired straight after the game. I picked Renfro for first touchdown, which didn't hit, but this is where my personal punting comes into it, where you've just got to use the information that's available to you. And I talked about the uncertainty around a lot of injuries for the Raiders. Well, on Friday morning Australian time, it was confirmed Josh Jacobs was ruled out for the Raiders, and the backup running back, the rookie Zamir White, was going to get the start. And I went straight on the odds comparison tool, had a look around, and Zamir White was still $9 for first touchdown, which they had shortened because you wouldn't usually have a backup at that price. But it wasn't confirmed he was going to get the start. There was another guy it could have been. It was shortening into sevens and sixes elsewhere. So I had to play first touchdown White, and I also played White anytime touchdown. Again, he was shortening into like $2, which a starting running back for a favorite can be, but he was still hanging about 270 places, and I figured that's very correlated with the Raiders win. So I played like White and Raiders -2.5 at 430, stuff like that. So chucked the game on, and it all goes perfectly. Raiders march up the field, get to the 1 yard line. You're going to give it to the running back. They had been given a couple of carries to a couple of other fellas, so I was a bit nervous, but White's out there. Okay, he plows over. So I get my first touchdown and I get my anytime. It's like, well, now the Raiders need to win this. And as I just said, very easy watch. 42-0 at halftime. So that's one of those ones where it goes according to plan, but it's a good example of where information comes out. The bookies, it's not a perfect liquid marketplace. There are opportunities to get in when things are in flux and where you can still get outstanding prices on certain picks.
no, I love it. Well, just to continue on that story, one thing that obviously this year, sorry, this NRL season 2023 was my first year of like I guess I've been doing try-score punting for 10 years. We've had Wiki for a couple of years before that. But really paying attention, like every single player, every single game, and really going all in with Wiki's like notifications and try scoring opportunities, et cetera, right? What I thought would be cool to ask you is like, I know for American sports, it's a really big deal, but obviously we live in Australia and the time zone sucks for us, especially if it's like super early morning. So did you just happen to be awake at that time, or are you usually trying
Oh,
to set it?
this game, it's Thursday night football. It's like 11:30 a.m.
Oh,
starts.
right.
So it's pretty
Yep.
good because sometimes the lineups don't get finalized to an hour or two before kickoff.
Mm,
So that's easy. And that's the same for any of the primetime American games. But yeah, if you're really, really obsessed,
yep.
4 a.m., 3 a.m., I guess it depends where you are and whether you've got daylight savings, maybe 5 a.m. kickoffs,
Mm,
then yeah, you would have to get up, an hour or two before those games. And there
yep.
would be extra things you can find. And I'm not that insane. Like I play
Yeah.
fantasy, but I just set my lineup the night before, and I live with whatever happens an hour or two before kickoff. But I know other people take it even more seriously. But primetime game, that was easy enough for me to achieve.
Yeah, hell yeah. Because I think obviously for me it's NRL, so I do NRL fantasy and super coach, and I wouldn't dream of like not being able to do my team like a minute before the game or whatever it happens. So I'm always sort of on the ball. But no, awesome. All right, well let's get straight into it. So for this week, I'm just going through the Friday morning game. Was that? Oh crap! There's one of the Rams Saints. Is that the
That's right.
Friday morning? Yep,
Yeah,
sweet.
that's the
Okay,
one,
cool.
and it's a good one. They're both 7-7, both well and truly in the playoff hunt. In fact, the Saints can still win their division, so could still be hosting a playoff game. They both had impressive wins last week. And I'll say straight off the bat, I like the Saints in this one. I know the Rams have been on a roll. I know that the Rams are at home and home teams do do better on Thursday. It's such a short week of preparation. So how not having to travel and being in your home environment is an advantage. And the line suggests the same, that the Rams are 4.5-point favorites, which indicates not only the advantage of being at home, but that the marketplace views LA as a superior team. And I'm not certain that's the case. So I give the Saints a real chance in this one. And I'm not going anything too elaborate. I really am just picking the Saints' best player on offense, and that is Alvin Kamara, who also touches the ball the most for the Saints, getting 20 touches combined. Love the guys that get carries as running back, but also threaten the passing game. That's Kamara, 20 touches a game, basically the last 3 or 4 games. And your biggest concern when you're looking for a touchdown, and you've got him there, 215, pretty modest for any time. I'm looking first touchdown, right, which was 850. And your big risk with Kamara is getting a goal line carry kind of vultured by Taysom Hill, who people will know is the Swiss Army knife kind of backup quarterback, does it all for the Saints, and they do often use him in short yardage situation where he doesn't hand off, he takes it himself. So I considered Taysom Hill, who you might see their best price, $14. But I like Kamara being the better player, slightly more, the higher likelihood. And, even going back to that 215 or so for any time, I think it is so correlated with a Saints either upset win or covering the line. So I would shop around in your same gamer. And I think something like Saints head-to-head into Kamara or Saints with the start into Kamara is a very sound play, because I do like New Orleans, and I also lean to overs in the total. We've got a total of 46. And I could see there being a lot of aggressive play by both of these coaches. And therefore, when you're going for it on 4th down a lot, it's either keeping attacking drives alive, or it's suddenly shortening the field for the opponent, which can lead to more touchdowns as well. So Alvin's the man I like in this one.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I think I was just mentioning to you before we started recording that I'll be back in Sydney, back home in a couple of weeks. So I reckon when I'm back, I'll start putting some same game multis on all of our tips, and it's much more enjoyable to obviously punt, like to have a punt on something to follow it, than to actually chat about it in the group. So I'll start doing that a bit more religiously when I'm back home. But as I've
100%.
started doing, what I might do is just have a quick look at market value. Obviously, market value, as we discuss every week, doesn't necessarily mean it's a good bet. It just means that one bookie has something hanging out at way higher odds than other bookies. And what I try to do is get Jacob's advice to see, are these just randomly way higher, or are any of them actually good plays? So do you see anything sort of any of the guys from like Jamal Williams and above? They are way higher odds, but are any of them actually
I mean,
potentially
the
valuable?
top two there are the two starting quarterbacks, so Stafford and Carr. And this is something that I've mentioned, and I've played a couple of quarterbacks during our series for first touchdown, because I think teams are using them a little bit more frequently. And so therefore some bookies are winding the prices in. So you're looking at $61 for Matt Stafford as opposed to 35 or lower elsewhere. But I still couldn't play it, even though the tool's telling you that's 175% higher price than the next, I guess. He's just a quarterback that gets used very infrequently. I could see, even if it's super short yardage, under a yard to the goal line, they're going to hand it off to the stud running back, Kyron Williams. Like, Stafford's getting on a bit, and the coach is not going to put him in harm's way early. So I couldn't see him getting first touchdown. And Derek Carr is a little bit the same way, that if it's short yardage, it's much more likely that Hill comes on and then Carr doesn't get the snap. And these aren't quarterbacks that are mobile. They're not going to run it in. So it's literally the only way you score is a kind of a push in a super short yardage. So it didn't really appeal to me.
Sweet. Exactly what you said. It reminds me, I won't actually punt on them because, as I said, I'm not home. I actually don't have that much time to watch this stuff live at the moment. But if I'm back in Sydney, I would have been putting a few bucks on just for fun to follow it, because what this reminds me of, if you remember Magic Round this year, Kieran Foran scored a hat trick. I think it was a hat trick. It was 2 or 3.
Yep, I was there.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. It was the most ridiculous thing. Like, one of the bookies had him at a really good price. And I was like, the dude's literally publicly said that he's got a busted toe or a busted ankle or whatever it was. Dude looks like 50 years old. He is Gonski, playing for a shit team as well, or like a not so successful NRL team. And dude scores a hat trick. It just reminds me so much of that. But I think in NRL it's obviously way different. Like, anyone can sort of dummy and go, and it's a lot easier from what you're saying. I'll just have a quick look at any time to see if anything pops out. I'm pretty sure it'd be the similar players, but anyone from
Yes.
Jimmy Graham or above that stands out, or no, it's the same guys pretty much, isn't it?
It's kind of still goes back to me kind of little bit needle in a haystack where these
Mm,
type of players that are going to be double digit odds for an anytime touchdown that you're not even sure if they're going to see the ball. You know, it's a
yep.
different story with these quarterbacks, but they might not literally not have a positive yardage rushing play the whole game. And the others
Yeah.
are receivers that are not going to run many routes or see many snaps. So it is hard.
Sweet.
Nothing really jumping out there. If I have to give you one, Rashid Shaheed is a deep threat there for the Saints, who I do like for a possible upset. And so,
Mm.
470 for an anytime touchdown is certainly conceivable.
Oh, nice. I think, yeah, as we promised when we started this a few weeks ago, it was meant to be you actually knowing the sports and following it more religiously, and me just throwing things out as I guess potential Hail Marys, and if something clicks, it clicks, right? Because I think that's what I noticed, like sort of following the Wiki Discord as it grew this year, is like a lot of these sports, like people might be having a punt without knowing too much about it. So I think it's kind of nice being the novice asking questions and seeing
Yeah,
if any of this
no
stuff
dumb
sticks.
questions. And I know that every year more Aussies are getting interested in the American sports. You've got to learn somehow. And it is
Exactly.
quite foreign. But you do find you pick up more and more, and then you enjoy it more the more that you do understand the nuance of the sport.
No, 100%. Awesome. Well, as always, Google Wiki Linktree if you want to listen to this pod, watch this pod, check out any of the odds comparison tools. It is all free. And obviously, Jacob runs Tripod, Punters Tips Forum. Over 25,000 people on there. A lot of good tips from a lot of different people for all kinds of sports. Anyways, guys, we'll catch you soon.